Hey, everybody. I haven't done an update because there hasn't been too much to update, but I got a really good email that had a bunch of questions on it. So, Terry, thank you for doing that. Someone from Southeast Portland just wrote an email saying, hey, here's a bunch of questions that I think need to be answered, or maybe you have answered, but anyway, I just thought I'd use this opportunity. So today is the 27th of September. So I wrapped up took all the dredge stuff out of the pit, filled the car. That was all like 3 weeks ago now, 4 weeks ago. I have a new project in the river, a couple new projects that I'm hoping to move towards. One came to me in a dream about a place that I need to dive, and I felt like something was kind of calling me there, which I know sounds kind of woo-woo, but so I'll be doing that today, actually. I've got an assistant coming over in a little while and take the boat out to an interesting place. And then the other thing that I'm really playing around with and interested in is the amount of this invasive plant in the river. It's called Eurasian water milfoil, and it's really bad. Like, this is not like a minor thing. There's acres and acres and acres of water milfoil, it's this thick red plant that grows up that has little whorls. You've seen it inside aquariums, I'm sure. It's a popular aquarium plant, and that's how it got to the United States, or that's how it got to North America. And it's really a big problem. So I'm trying to work with, having done this Martin Car project, I'm not so intimidated about permits with federal government, with state agencies. So I'm working on figuring out a way to maybe remove some of this, using a lot of my dredge equipment, actually. You can use dredge equipment to suck the plants up. And anyway, that's what I'm thinking about. Let's get back to the Martin Car, though, for you. So about the remains, right? So the remains were passed on to the Hood River County Sheriff. And the idea there was that they were photographed, and then those photographs were sent off to the state forensic anthropologist, who's been doing a lot of amazing work recently, apparently, because, they just identified like some crazy old remains and all sorts of stuff. So I can only imagine it's a busy office. Anyway, I believe they would be sent then to the anthropologist, and then potentially do some DNA testing on him. But the sheriff, the lead detective on this case, when I passed over the thing, said, yeah, well, that's like $10,000 to get the DNA testing done. So they didn't know if they had the budget for that, because Hood River County is a relatively it's kind of a rural county in some ways, but its proximity to Portland and having an interstate highway through it, definitely they are busy with big town, policing. So it's expensive, and so I don't know how that's gonna work out. So there is, let's see. So the bones went there. The more I think about it, the more I really believe. This is just my opinion. I think that Barbie, the daughter, the 14-year-old daughter, was not in the car. I think the remains I found were almost all Ken and Phoebe, the mother. So I think that there's a good chance that when the girls floated out, or earlier in that morning, or later in the day, whatever, Barbie also floated out and then was just never found. Either she had some kind of skin wound puncture from the accident, or just the degradation of 9 months under the river. Because once that happens, the bodies don't float for very long, like Gina and Sue did. Anyway, it's tough stuff. But I found her shoes in the car, and I think that all the girls had their shoes off, all the little girls. And I think I used to have the theory that Barbie was in the front with her parents, but now I think that all three were in the back of the car, and that the parents only stayed in the car because if you look at this 54 Ford, there's about 16 inches of room between the top of the seat and the roof of the car. So that, and if a person a large person already, and then they're bloated to like twice the size once the car starts rolling. There's just no way for those parents' bodies to work their way out, because the back of the car was what was open at that point. And I saw that the tailgate and the glass were gone, and that's how I believe the girls floated out. But the parents couldn't, because they were the only way out of that space was between the roof and the top of the seat, and I don't think that they would at that point they would fit. More gruesome stuff, but that's where I am with that. Okay, another couple good questions were about the what do I think happened and the transmission. I think the transmission was involved to some extent. First of all, Ken had in the police record in Hood River, he is said to have had multiple backing up accidents, and he had arthritis in his neck. And that he was not necessarily great at, he was a very safe person and a very good driver, very conservative driver, but that he wasn't always good at backing up. And so I think that that the transmission might have had a role in this. So my friend Gary, thank you Gary so much, I contacted him on Facebook he has a car almost exactly like this car. And so I was able to go down to his house in south of Portland and see this car, and it was so useful to see because this car in my mind existed as this like white whale of a concept for so long. Then to actually sit in the car and see the car and imagine what it's like getting in, getting out, imagine it being underwater, upside down, seeing the seats. Also, once I started having to go into the car, I was seeing things. I'm like, well, what is this thing? And with his car, I could take measurements and I could see oh, here's how the seats are attached to the floor. Here's how the track works. Here's how, it was great. So thank you, Gary, for that. So anyway, Ford-O-Matic transmissions. So Ford-O-Matic was an early trend. This is a 1954 Ford, and it had a very imprecise kind of 3-speed transmission. So, and what that means is you would, like Gary told me, you would not start the car in park. You would go from park to neutral to start the car. Then the car wouldn't do anything until you actually gave it some RPMs. If it was in drive, it would start moving. So it was pretty ambiguous about what gear it was in and how it was going to move at any point. And so that might have had they did have it for 4 years, so because they bought it new in 54 or 55. It was a 54 model year, but they may have gotten it a little later. So I don't know about that, but I do believe it's a relatively complicated, it's not like a modern transmission, let's put it that way, where there's there's feedback about what gear you're in and how you're moving. The other thing that could have happened, my intuition says, so I'm going to use this piece of paper here. So imagine this is the canal right here, okay? So there is, when you drive up to the edge of the canal, there's nothing to stop you from going in. It's just a 90-degree edge that you fall down like 20 feet, 30 feet. Now this side, there's a level drop. So this is kind of high, and there's kind of a steep slope down to what was a lake at the time. So a steep slope down here. And on this side, there's a stone wall. So basically, this side and this side are open. This side would drop you right into the river if you went off. This side would drop you down onto a steep slope, and then eventually there's like a little impounded water body there that was there in the 50s. So I believe, that people who drove up could have driven straight in accidentally, could have not known where they were, thought, saw the trees across the canal and thought the canal was further, could have driven in at high speed. Also, I believe what could have happened is Ken could have gone and done a U-turn here and accidentally put a wheel off, though his front would have been BB's side of the car. He could have put a front wheel off this edge and then couldn't get the car back on the road, and so went reverse, and then went so fast into reverse actually and had straightened out the wheel that the car went backwards into the canal. Right, so was doing a U-turn, but the car made a really bigger U-turn than he foresaw. One wheel went off, the car was stuck. He used the transmission, which was very imprecise, and then ended up backing in this direction. I have no proof of this. This is just what I believe happened after being there a long time and really thinking about this. So we're never going to know. That's the thing, and we're never going to know if anybody else intervened. But I do believe that that there was, I've seen the evidence. I've seen people who wrote into the police files, and I think that there was a letter, and I can't remember who sent it now. Maybe JB remembers this. Somebody said that they and their date or partner, they were down there at the locks, and they were there was no one else there, and they were by the entrance. There's only one entrance and exits to the parking area because it's under a railroad bridge. So they were there. They saw the Martin car go by, and then they drove around after that. They may have heard some screaming, but they drove around, and the car was nowhere to be found in that same spot. So that means that there was no one else there also. So that to me says this was a one-car accident with no one else involved. But like I said, we won't really ever know that. Yeah. So without my notes for today, I think, oh yeah, so I have heard, and I can't keep track of who I've heard from right now, but I've heard from people who were in Ken's family, who were like Ken's cousins and the descendants of Ken's cousins. I've heard from Barbara's sister's relatives, and I have heard from, or I contacted the son who wasn't in the car. I've contacted his daughter before, but I've heard there's a couple other kids. So they really have not reached out to me. The actual Don's kids haven't reached out to me, which is fine. I reached out to one of them just during when it was all happening, just to try to contact, and I felt like they were a little overwhelmed with the whole situation because it was, I think this was not a big part of their life. This mystery was not even really known to them until kind of late in Don's life before he died. But some of the other relatives have been really along the way really useful and really helpful. They've been, I have had the memorial service, what do you call it, run of show, the program basically from 1959. It's forwarded to me, and that's super interesting. And just kind of along the way, some interesting genealogy and things. So yes, the family is in some ways really involved, and they're really interested, and I really appreciate that. And also, Don's kids, I mean, I'm always happy to talk with you guys too, if you ever hear this, or if you ever want to have like a chat about things. I know it's a lot. Anyway, that is yesterday I spent a bunch of time taking my dredge apart. I kind of piled it all up in the boat, and that was a little hard to deal with because that was such an organizing principle for me for such a long time, to build this major dredge system and install it under the river and have it work and have the failures and learning the lessons and rebuilding it. And now I've got 1,000 pounds of 5-inch and 3-inch conduit and PVC and all sorts of stuff. So pumps, high pressure pumps, breathing apparatuses. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'll do with all that, but if you have donated to the GoFundMe, it's still going, and I so appreciate it. And any little bit helps towards the work I've already done. I'm not making any further expenses at this point other than the book. And if you're listening this long into the video, you must be a real diehard fan, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you if you've donated, by the way. So many people have donated just a little bit here and there, and it really adds up and helps defray the big cost of this. So we have a book with Ian Costello, and it's so exciting. We have the manuscript. It's almost finished. But we thought we had a publishing deal, and then we realized that we don't have a publishing deal, that it's not a very good deal, the one we were offered. So if you're in the publishing business, if you think you have a contact who would want to help publish a really good 350-page true crime style book, not really necessarily a crime, but a true mystery book, please reach out to me. Otherwise, we're going to have to go through like the normal publishing route, which I think is a little bit of a wall to climb over because they make it difficult. But I think in this case, we have a really great book. We have a really great story. I've got a couple thousand emails that you guys have given me your emails, so I can pass that on to the publisher once we're ready to actually have a book. All right, 15 minutes in. Thank you for listening if you're still here. And I will be definitely back. If you're interested in the one-man show, I'm hopefully going to re-perform that show in Portland or around the Columbia area once the book is ready. So we'll see about that. But I just so appreciate all the support and all the enthusiasm, and I have nothing but love and appreciation for the nice comments and the support and the GoFundMe. Thank you much.